Joel Mbambo Matunjwa was brought up in the house of a prince, where his father was the chief cook. His father later became a traditional healer. Mbambo was a Zulu warrior, like his father had been. When the wars ended, he returned home and met the Salvation Army. This is where we pick up the story.
I went to the first Salvation Army meeting in Zululand in 1891. I wore my full Zulu warrior clothes. People started arriving as soon as the sun came up. By 11 o'clock, there was a very large crowd. The Salvation Army officer gave a sermon about God's love in sending Jesus to be our Savior. When the officer finished speaking, he asked if anyone wanted to give himself to this God who gave his only Son for us. I raised my hand and came to the front to pray. I became a Christian that day and left my traditional religion of witchcraft behind. I wanted my wife, Sunshine, to become a Christian too. While I was away for work, the Salvationists took her in. I tried to be a good Christian witness. I helped someone become a Christian, but he was killed. I became discouraged and lost my faith for a while. I couldn't read, so I couldn't get any help or strength from the Bible. One day, I was attacked by some robbers and left for dead. My work manager realized how badly I'd been hurt and sent me back to my village. My health and my faith grew stronger there. I told my family about Jesus. 15 family members gave up their old religion of witchcraft and became Christians. Sunshine and I became officers and were appointed in what is now Zimbabwe. It was a violent time, and the local people weren't happy to have a Zulu man and his family there. But I knew it was God's will, so I wasn't going to let anyone scare me away. Years before, rebels destroyed the Salvation Army farm in Corps and killed the Corps officer. We were sent to rebuild. On the first night at the farm, I built a fire to keep away the lions that had taken over and started building a house for my family and a small Corps building out of sticks and mud. Rebels tried to scare me away by threatening to burn down the buildings and kill the people there. But I kept working. We trusted that God, who had sent us, would protect us and provide for us. The Corps grew. The rebels wanted to discourage us and stop us from working in their community. They didn't want people to become Christians. They decided to murder our 17-year-old son by sending someone to poison him. Some time later, a young man came to the Corps meeting. After my sermon, he came to the mercy seat. As I prayed with this young man, I was shocked to hear his confession. He was the one who had murdered our son. He begged us for forgiveness. How could I forgive him for killing my son? Then I remembered how Jesus forgave those who crucified him. Together, Sunshine and I forgave the young man, in spite of the overwhelming pain and hurt we felt. We led him to the Lord. I asked the young man to meet me at my home the next day. When he arrived, he was terrified. He thought I was going to kill him because he had killed our son. I took him to the room where my son once slept and said, "This is your room now, my son. We forgive you." He lived with us as our son from that day until he went to the Salvation Army training school to become an officer. Several years later, we left Zimbabwe and went back to Zululand, where my wife and I had become Christians. All that was left were blackened walls of buildings that had been destroyed in the war. One of our first jobs was to build a hut to live in. We continued to build, and the work grew. Many new converts were made, but the old religion was still powerful. There had been a long drought in the area. Some people in the community thought the drought was a sign that the gods were displeased. They wanted to offer a sacrifice, so they murdered an old woman to sacrifice. I wanted to bring people to Jesus, so I knew I had to work at that farm called Mountain View. I asked the farmer for permission to begin army work there to help get rid of the spiritual darkness. He agreed. I made the stable ready for worship and prayed for God's victory. I visited the surrounding villages, introducing myself as the son of those who had served the Zulu prince. They accepted me. Then I gave my testimony and said the message was for them too. Many came to worship in the stable, and many prayed at the altar for forgiveness. I taught people to read so they could read their Bibles and teach others. There was no school, so I started teaching the children. There was no hospital, so I tried to help those who were sick. I served at Mountain View for 13 years. My most important work was helping people know Jesus.
When the farm came up for sale, the Salvation Army bought it, building a hospital and school there. The Salvation Army's work at Mountain View, that started with Joel Mbambo Matunjwa and his family, continues more than 100 years later.